My name is Andres. Welcome to the Baking Steel Studio. And I know we've got some newbies here, and we're going to get to all your questions too. So we'll have some pauses during today's class, and we'll get to the questions. And if I don't get to it, just retype it in there, and we'll get to it eventually, I promise. Baking Steel Studio here. We're making thin crust pizza today. But first, I know we've got some newbies. I want to just give you a little explanation about the steel. I was in the food industry for like 20 plus years, or I'm sorry, 20 years ago, mold. And I worked from high school into colleges and just loved the culinary arts and restaurants. My last culinary adventure with a celebrity chef, his name is Todd English in Boston, and it was phenomenal. I worked with Todd, making pizzas at Figs, initially ended up on his management team, had all of his recipes. His pizzas were phenomenal from Figs, and I just fell in love with pizza at that point. I took, when I left, my dad's an entrepreneur. I went to work in steel. So I went to work my dad's business in Hanover, Mass, called Stoughton Steel. We made products, my brother, my dad, like 30 other guys, for manufacturers like Caterpillar and John Deere. And so I took a departure from the food industry and focused on trying to help build my dad's business with my brother and a bunch of other people. And our biggest customers were Caterpillar and John Deere. It was fascinating business. Wasn't my true passion. I had all of Todd's recipes. I would literally host pizza parties on the weekends with my friends and my girlfriend at the time, and it was always fun making pizzas. However, I was making them on a pizza stone. I broke a bunch of them. The pizzas were good, but they weren't legendary. And I just thought you needed a wood-fired oven at home to make really great pizza. So one day I was reading in the Wall Street Journal after work. I'm reading this book about the modernist cuisine book being launched. And it was really a deep dive into the math and the physics and the science of cooking. Fascinating book. It was like $600. I have a volume. They have a copy at my home. $600. I wasn't that interested in buying it at the time. However, there's some really interesting articles in there and research. And one of the questions was asked, how do you make like Neapolitan style pizza at home? And so I was sitting at my desk. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, what kind of incredible question is this? I made pizzas. I didn't know how to do it. Great. And the author, Nathan Myhrvold, who's a former Microsoft exec scientist, said to use some steel for a shelf. And it was like someone took a baseball bat over my head. And so I ran out to my plant. I grabbed a piece of steel. I lived in Massachusetts at the time. I brought it home. My wife's like, what are you doing with that steel? I said, I'm making pizza. And she said, I'm not going to eat it. As you can imagine, this piece of steel was rusted, beat up. In any case, I made pizza that weekend. And like all of us, I struggled getting a crispy crust at home. And I timed my first pizza. In fact, I think I made a same day dough. I made it in the morning, the dough in the morning. And by afternoon, I was able to launch it. But I had a crispy pizza in about 7 minutes. It was like a monumental moment for me. I'm like, holy shit. With the steel and my dad's equipment, I was able to, I knew I could make these things. He had $1 million worth of equipment. I could learn how to make these steels and sell them as a side hustle. And so that was in 2012. And, here we are 10 years later plus, and this is all that I do. All of our baking steels are sourced and made in the USA. My brother makes them now. My dad's still active. He makes them, my brother does, with his team. And we make the baking steels. It's phenomenal, guys. We're now able to recreate like that wood-fired environment or like a deck oven in a restaurant at home, which is mind-blowing. And as you'll see in just a few minutes, I'm going to make a thin crust pizza using our 72-hour dough, our baking steel, which has been preheating in our oven, and the pizza is going to be phenomenal. So any of you have a wood-fired oven, those are great. However, we're saying we can replicate it in a home oven. I've got a Monogram electric wall oven here. I've got 2 baking steels inside, and you'll see it's phenomenal. If there are any questions before we get started on the pizza, I love it too. Meg V, I thank you. You as well. We started doing pandemic on very Friday night. 3 boys looking forward to it. Yeah, you're gonna learn. This is gonna be great. You're gonna just love it. Thank you, Vicky. I got my steel. Oh, Jack, awesome. I love it. So Sur La Table, just to give a little backstory on Sur La Table, they came to me in like 2015 to make them for them. I did, and we were a very happy customer, and they were great. You know, we'd sell X amount per month. It was a good relationship. 2021, 2020, 21, they went bankrupt, and they kind of left. We got, oops, it was an oopsie, right? Anyway, not a fun situation for us as a manufacturer, but whatever, they did. And then listen to this story. 2023 or 22, they called me back. Said, Andres, we want you back. We want the baking steels. We want to provide them. So I reluctantly came back to Sur La Table. 6 months later, they sent me an email. Andres, thanks for your help, but we're going to China to make a thinner steel. It's going to not be as good as yours, but we're going to get it cheaper. And so Sur La Table is now selling a cheap knockoff of the baking steel. Spilled milk, I'm fine. Life, life happens. But that's my Sur La Table backstory. 2 steels, no, major done. 2 steels is definitely not a must. In fact, today I'll probably just use 1 steel. I like 2 steels when I'm doing multiple pizzas. So if I'm having like a party and I'm making like 5 or 6 pizzas, having 2 is great. And I can explain why in a little bit, but 2 is better than 1 in that instance. But for making 1 or 2 pizzas, even 3, 1 pizza's steel, 1 baking steel is fine. Okay, let me get to some more questions here. What is the advantage of the upper steel? So I've got 2 steels. Someone's asking the upper, the bottom. As you'll know, I like to use the broiler when I'm launching my pizzas. So I've got the upper steel about 7 inches, and we'll take a peek inside the oven in a little bit, about 7 inches from my broiler. So I get the direct heat from the broiler. And now when I launch my second pizza, I will do is I'll move my top pizza down to the bottom steel and launch a new one on top. Literally almost every 2 minutes, I'll cycle them. It's phenomenal. I got into sort of steel. Hey, thank you, Kate. I love it. Yes. Yes, I got it before. Thank you. I love it, Jack. That's great. All right, so let's get into thin crust pizza. Sorry for that side story. Hope you enjoyed it. But thin crust pizza. I mixed the dough on Monday. Today's Wednesday. So we have a 48-hour dough. I took these delis home because I'll explain why in a few minutes. This is the studio. My house is about 20 minutes away. So this morning, I didn't have to get up super early to get in here. I was able to go for a walk with my wife, make my dough balls. I brought them in my delis, and as opposed to getting in here super early to ball them up. Because I like to ball up my dough about 3 or 4 hours before I stretch it out. So this dough was literally balled up actually last night. I balled it up last night, put it in the deli, overnight in the fridge. This morning when I got up around like 7, after my walk or exercise, I got up around, I took these out of the fridge around 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning. So now it's been about 4 hours. You'll see this dough is super supple. This is our 72-hour dough. I use the same hydration, which is 70%. It's super supple. It's gonna be really crispy. So let's get into making the pizza. I'm gonna make everything. I'll show you my mise en place, cheeses that I'm using, etc. We'll go into the oven, make the pizza. All right, that was my baking steel bracelets here too, by the way. Those are nice. Flour down, right? And now I'll take these doughs out of the delis. These are nice. You can get these called 2-cup delis. You can get these on Amazon. They come in handy for leftovers. They're reusable if you want to wash them again, right? So this dough, as you can see, it's been sitting, so it's risen. And this is only a 150-gram dough ball. So it's small. Because I'm going to roll it out really thin, or press it out really thin. So once I do this, I just take my dough, place it in the flour. You can see the bubbles, right? But this is gonna be the one time where I'm just gonna start the process, and then I'll talk about my other ingredients. Just press it out a little bit. It's really supple. Because it's been resting for 3 or 4 hours, it's really supple. You can see like how easy this is to stretch. It really feels like a cloud, almost, right? It's beautiful because the lighting's nice too. Isn't that gorgeous? So I got my dough somewhat set aside here. I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna talk about the ingredients I'm using. These are the tomatoes. Bianco di Napoli tomatoes, right? You can see these, they're California organic tomatoes, USDA organic. These are crushed. All I do is I open the can up and I add a little bit of sea salt. You can see that a little chunky, which I like. They have an extraordinary flavor to them, very fresh. We're not going to cook them. We're going to cook these on the pizza in the oven. And this is the cheese I'm using. You can see the slight variations of colors. I got fresh mozzarella, shredded fontina, and shredded whole milk mozzarella. Now, this is what they look like. This is the fontina I get. It's called Mitica Fontal. Okay, and this is from Whole Foods. You can see this, it's got like a little rind on it. It's a soft cheese. It melts really nicely. And then for my mozzarella, I go to Trader Joe's. This is the part skim. I also have a whole milk, which is actually on my plate here. I usually use 50-50%, both of these. This is, again, hard cheese, right? Dry mozzarella. And these are great. And this is what happens when I shred it. I just shred it. And if you follow us, we always shred our own cheese. Each individual strand, when you buy them pre-shredded, are coated with starch. And those starches tend to stick together. So what we do to combat that is we buy chunks of cheese like this, and we shred it ourselves. And this is just a little piece of fresh mozzarella. So I kind of have 3 cheeses going on, and I've kept this in the fridge until class started, so it's nice and cold. It'll slow that cooking process down just a little bit. Could also stick it in the freezer ahead of time. Just to, not to freeze it, but just to slow down the cooking process so it doesn't brown too fast. I like giving things away. So today, got a brand new peel. Okay, I'm gonna give one away to somebody here randomly today. This is our 14-inch peel, our most popular. It's awesome. I love it. It's cherry wood. I serve on these. I slice on these. I do everything. Well, my peel person, we made a smaller one, 12-inch peel. So you can see the difference in size. And I love this 12-inch peel. It's phenomenal. It's just a little bit easier to handle. You'll see all my pizzas that I make on our Instagram are 12 inches. They all fit on here. 14 inches is great. However, I just love this. I love the versatility and the size of this thing. It's incredible. Just so, and today, anybody who's here in class, I'm gonna give one person, I'm gonna select them randomly at the end to pick. I'm gonna send one of these peels to you. They're awesome. I think the retail about $69. Super thick cherry wood, very, very durable. They'll last literally a lifetime. It's so nice. So anyway, sidebar. So someone stick around at the end, give them one away. Here's my peel. I always like to dust my peel in between. Here's a little flour and semolina flour, right? Those are my ball bearings. My dough will go right on top of that. But let's continue to stretch this dough out. You can see, isn't that gorgeous, guys? You can see that, how supple this stretches. It's so easy. It's like done a yoga class and hot yoga, and it's just like so easy to stretch. The bubbles with the thin crust, I tend to like almost knock those out because I want a thin crust. I might leave a couple around the edge, the perimeter. I'm just going to stretch this by hand because I can. And really, gravity is doing all the work here. You can see this now, right? Isn't that pretty? Go a little bit more. I'm gonna clean my countertop off here. Let's scraper here. Bring my peel over. Right? I'm gonna throw my dough right on top. You can see it's maxing out this 12 inches. I'm gonna pinch my edges. Right? Boom. Isn't that pretty? Super thin, right? Now I'm going to do is take my sauce. Now with sauce, because I'm making a thin crust and I want it crispy, There's a lot of moisture here. So I want to really reduce the amount of sauce I'm going to use. I don't want to put too heavy because that water will seep into the crust and it won't crisp up as nice. So you can see I'm going really light on my sauce just to help enhance that crispiness. Right? And the same goes for my cheese. I've got low moisture mozzarella, right? And I've got fontina, not too heavy on my cheeses. So brown, really nice. It's going to look incredible. All right, so now I've got my pizza on here, my cheese. That look nice. I'm going to break up a little bit of this fresh mozz. Just break it up into small pieces, just to have another flavor, another cheese. It'll look nice. It'll melt nice. I'm breaking this into really small pieces. Less is more. That's our mantra. Before I do anything else, I'm gonna give it a little slide. Boom, okay? Got my pizza done, right? Awesome. Let's talk about the oven. My baking seals have been inside the oven for the last like hour, hour and a half, preheating at 450 degrees. I'm gonna switch my oven. I'm gonna switch my oven to broil. It's been preheating at 450. Now I'm turning the broiler on with the idea I'm gonna get that steel like ripping hot. It's at 450 right now because I know that because of the preheat time at 450 for like an hour. Now I'm going to turn the broiler on, and that broiler is going to just those red electric coils are going to like just zap that steel super hot. And we're going to get my steel to about 550 degrees when that steel is like raging, and then we're going to launch. I'm going to keep the broiler on for about a minute, maybe just a little bit longer. And we're going to just finish this on the top steel without the broiler, back on convection bake for about 3 or 4 minutes. And we will have what I hope to be a real crispy pizza. It's going to be awesome, right? It looks amazing. So my oven's going to be hot. Let's go into the oven, peek inside my oven. You can see, if I look, I've got 2 steels. My broiler's red hot. So now I launch it in, slide it off quickly. Boom. I'll set my timer to 1 minute. After 1 minute, I am going to turn the broiler off and maybe rotate the pizza just a little bit. And what we'll have, and then we'll just bake it for another 3 or 4 minutes, and it'll be phenomenal. Crispy, delicious, awesome pizza at home. That equals a wood-fired oven to get someone to get back. Let's see here. Let's see. I used to cook 2 in the broiler and finish on the bottom. Yeah, it worked great. I love it. That's great, Jack. Good story. Yep. Oh, yeah. So, Jack, love the brand. They make a New York style sauce too. Yeah. So, Jack's referring to the Bianco di Napoli tomatoes. Really nice tomatoes. They're great. These are crushed. You can buy them whole and crush them yourself too if you like them chunkier. I really don't think you're sacrificing any flavor when you buy them crushed already. Just add a little bit of sea salt. Phenomenal. So someone is asking, I don't need a name there, but is asking, what's the benefit of W0 flour for pizzas? Really, it's dealer's choice. W00 flour, an Italian flour, it's finely ground, so it's a little more fine flour than, say, the bread flour that I'm using. Really designed for those high heat brick ovens. It's phenomenal, especially like an organic Caputo is a great flour. Some people will prefer it inside their home oven on a steel, will prefer the W0 over the bread flour. I prefer, personally, the bread flour organic over the W0. So it's really dealer's choice. My recommendation is just to try different flours and see what your sweet spot is. You might even want to combine W0 and bread flour, half and half. That will also work. It'd be amazing. Oh, shoot. Let me go. My timer was set for an hour, so I messed up. Let's take a peek in here. Let's see what I'm looking at. So you can see, look at the colors, right? So I'm going to turn that broiler off right away. I'm going to go back to convection. In fact, what I'm going to do, guys, is to protect myself and this pizza from burning, I'm going to use the bottom steel, right? I've got a lot of color on top, as you can see, right? So what I'll do, you see that? Right? And so what I'll do, I'll move the bottom steel just so the top doesn't get any more dark. You can throw it down here. It's safe. Now the bottom can catch up to the top. I'm taking it. I turn my timer on for an hour, not a minute. My mistake. I'll try 2 more minutes first. Whew. Always use a timer. I say that every time. Always use a timer, and there I am not using a timer. Crazy. Let's see here. This is my first class. Where do I find out about the 72-hour dough? Joyce, great question. I will get it to you. In fact, I can post it right here so you guys can take it. Look, hold on for 1 second. If you could bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to send it to you. If anybody's on our site, by the way, we have a little window. We have a window on our site, a little magnifying glass, and it's just a search bar. You can go in there and just type in literally anything. And if we have it, it'll pop up, which is amazing. So I'm going to post it right here for everybody. Our 72-hour dough recipe. There it is. I would also like to know about the 72-hour dough. Amber, so that's the recipe right there. This is what I just made today. It's super easy to make. We have a video on the site on that blog post as well. Super easy, very little mixing, very little skill level needed. The biggest thing is to use, in my opinion, like the nice flours, the organic flours, we like a higher protein flour. I use filtered water because I drink filtered water, so I cook with filtered water. Just the really small basics that we do really, really well will result in an amazing pizza crust. The other thing, we call it a 72-hour. Well, mine's 48. I didn't even have the full 48 hours. I mean, 72. This is 48. At a bare minimum, I would go 24 hours. It'll still be really good. And you'll see the 24 and then 48, it'd be a little bit better and still really good. 72 and even 96, incredible. After that, what happens is the glutens begin to really break down, making it very difficult to stretch. But one of the advantages of a long fermented dough is the digestibility in our bodies. We can really digest the pizza doughs really well if we ferment it. The same goes with bread. And so organic flours, fermentation equals healthier pizza. Not a doctor. Don't take my word on that. But it's been pretty much, it's written down now as well. So Jack's asking, is that a cold ferment or a room ferment? I start out doing a 24-hour room temperature ferment, then I move it into the fridge. This pizza's done. So let me take a look. Oh gosh, this is so good. So good, guys. I'm gonna show you a backside. Look at the underneath, right? Crust. Oh, it's gorgeous. Thin crust. Let me put my, I'll just do this. How's this? So you can see that pretty. So I've got some bubbles here still. Not traditional on a thin crust, but awesome. Underneath, really crispy. And I can pick it up and see holding its shape really well. It's such a winner. I could dress this up with some basil if I'd like, right? That pretty. That gorgeous, guys. Look at that. Literally 4 minutes in a home oven on a baking steel. We got results like this, which is just off the charts. So good. Incredible. So let's get to some more questions before I eat this thing. Anybody in Grand Rapids, Michigan, want to come over, join me for lunch? So Jack, I answered that cold ferment versus room ferment. And can you freeze a batch of the dough and freeze it? Oh, nice. Make a batch of dough and freeze it. Magvi, great question. Yes. In fact, we did an article on freezing dough. We've got a secret to that. If I'm making dough, I'm going to freeze it. Let's say I have a couple of leftover dough balls. I want to make, each batch makes about 3 or 4 doughs depending on the size. I typically make 1,000 gram. So I double the recipe and I have, which equals about 6 or 7 doughs for me. And let's say I did that and I'm going away and I have some extra dough. I don't want to waste it. I will do is I will ball up my dough balls and then I will freeze them right away. I'll put them in plastic wrap, and then I'll wrap them in plastic wrap, then wrap a baggie around the plastic wrap, throw them in my freezer up to 30 days. It's phenomenal. It works great. When I want to thaw it out, I'll remove it from the refreezer. I'll put it into the fridge overnight and it'll thaw. If I'm in a rush, I can take it from the freezer, go right to the counter and thaw it out on the counter. And that might take a couple of hours. I hope that makes sense. So Jack, some arugula and some balsamic glaze would be a really nice addition. I love that idea. It's good, Kathy. Are there any toppings that would not go while using steel with a broiler? Great question, Amber. Good question. Is there anything I wouldn't do if I'm using the broiler? So if I'm making a New York style pizza, I don't really want to get all this char on top, right? Isn't that pretty, by the way? I'm using a New York style. I don't want the char. I want like a nice, evenly cooked crust. So I won't use the broiler at all. I'll just do a straight bake on my steel. This acts like a deck oven as well. So it's a wood-fired oven if you want it. It's a deck oven. I'll cook those for like 7 minutes at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I'm using any kind of like vegetables, I'm gonna be very careful of scorching them on the broiler side. So typically I'm not gonna be too harsh with my, like my greens and my veggies with the broiler. Otherwise they might char too much. Even pepperoni, I don't want to get too dark. So what I might do is, in a lot of instances, I most of the time will use 2 minutes under the broiler. If I'm using vegetables, I might just do 1 minute and then turn the broiler off just so they won't get too dark. So that's a great question to ask. Yes, just be mindful of what's on top, how beautiful you want it to be when it comes out. Do I ever use tomato paste rather than crushed tomatoes? I do not. However, I have used and made some recipes using tomato paste in the sauce, and it does add a nice dense flavor to the tomatoes. So it is done in a lot of pizzerias, I believe. I never use it personally, professionally. However, I do know a lot of people do, and it does add a nice flavor to the sauce. You don't like the broiler step. Can you cook the pizza on the steel on the lowest shelf? When I cooked it 6 inches from the top, the crust didn't get crusty before the cheese got to the bottom, brown. Okay, great question. If I only have one steel and I'm not using the broiler, depending on where my heating element is, I might bake my pizza. I'd probably still go top shelf. One trick to get again, you saw the light, how light, look at, I was very light on my sauce here, but it still looks pretty saucy, right? It's gonna have a really nice flavor. And when I say we taught pizza classes in person in Boston, and not everyone, but most people default is to put too much toppings on. And when I layer my toppings on, it's very heavy. Some of them, might be sauce, which is very water intense. And that's water, or the vegetables can seep through that crust, making it more difficult to cook. But look at the bottom, right? Isn't that gorgeous? Literally 4 minutes. Very light sauce, very light toppings. So my thing is less is more on top. Just be mindful of how many vegetables, how much sauce I'm using. Another trick you can do if you don't want to use the broiler, here's a trick. Turn your broiler on for 5 minutes before you launch. And then right when you launch, turn the broiler off. What's happening there is our steel now is going beyond 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when the broiler's not on top, so it's not gonna be scorching the toppings as much. So broiler on for the first 5 minutes before you launch, and then turn the broiler off. And what results in a really, really hot steel, scorching hot, great temperature to launch that thing. And believe me, I've left with the gas broiler, I've done this. I've left that gas broiler on for too long, like say 10 minutes, and my steel is like 800 degrees. And it's way too hot to launch, and I'll literally burn the bottom of the pizza. So it is a really nice trick to use. Turn that broiler on before you launch, and then just turn it off. And it's a nice way to do it. And if you have convection, we always recommend using convection. My broiler is hot. I have a fig tree and make lots of fig. Oh, that sounds amazing, Jack. But sometimes add them later on, even prosciutto add later. Yes, that's great. great. So Jack's talking about like the finishing. Like, for example, this pizza here, I might add some fresh Parmesan and some fresh basil right at the end. Because I want the freshness of the herbs. Figs, phenomenal, right? Fresh grown figs, I can't even say, fresh grown figs, legendary. So he's got them off his trees. He's putting those on. I wouldn't even cook those, right? Why bother? It'd be so good fresh. Add them at the end of your bake. Really, they call that, in the pizza world, they call that the finishing station. So you might have figs, and you might have some oils and some vinegars, etc., at the finishing station with your fresh foods. And Rebecca is asking, do I ever use oil on crust before sauce? Great question. Again, so at Figs in Boston, which is still open, by the way, we always, every dough we stretched, we put olive oil, salt and pepper, and garlic, and we kind of spread it out throughout the crust with a spoon. It's a really nice take. It's a really nice flavor, and you don't know where it's coming from. It's underneath all the toppings, but it's really, really a nice layer of flavor. I haven't been doing it lately. I typically don't. However, I don't have garlic all the time. So, but it is a really nice layer of flavor. If I was having guests, maybe I would do that. Mark is asking, do you ever use a docker for thin crust pizza? I've heard it can promote crispiness. Great idea. So here's what a docker is. This is a docker, and it's like a roller, right? So and let me get to Mark. What Mark's saying is use a docker for the thin crust. I use these for like our pan pizzas sometimes. Yes, that would have been a great idea to use on the dough. What this does is just it adds some breathing holes inside the dough. You gotta be a little careful without using a pan that my sauce doesn't seep through the holes. So I would lightly dock my dough. And what this does, it would prevent like these natural bubbles and crevices from expanding too much. Dock does come in handy. Great question, Mark. So Kathy's asking Chicago style pizza. So we did again, go on our search bar, Chicago style. That's a different dough altogether. And that's baked on parchment paper. That dough ferments in the fridge overnight. And that is docked. We do dock that because it's very much a flat dough. Any chance you could repeat the broiler trick? Yes. KM. The broiler trick. So if I'm going to not use the broiler, I'm gonna do this two ways. I think this is the question you're asking. Before I stretch out my pizza, I make my pizza. My steel's been preheating at 500 degrees, say for 450 for an hour. Before I launch, I'm gonna switch my oven to broil. I have a dial, I can switch it, right? So switch the oven to broil, high, on convection broil if you have it. Let that broiler get that steel ripping hot at like say 500 degrees. Now the broiler is getting even hotter than 500 degrees. Right before I launch the pizza, I'm going to turn the broiler off and then launch. And what happens is my steel now is like say 600 degrees, 625, even 650. And I'll launch at that temperature. And if you're having a little bit of problem getting your bottom crust, well, this is going to really alter that. It's going to make that bottom crust almost too dark, too fast. So it's each oven's going to be different. So you're going to have to play around with your, the cycle of your broiler and steel inside. But that's one way to really get that steel humming before we launch. Newbie, just got my steel last week. Can you let me know how to prep it before baking? Tressa, hi, great question. It's ready to rip. So we season all of the steels at our plant in Massachusetts for you. We use a little bit of oils like flax oil just to protect it from the elements. It's ready to go out of the box. You might want to take like a damp paper towel, give it a wipe, if you will. But the good news is it's going in a 500-degree oven. So nothing's going to be living at that temperature. So it's good. I would just one thing, blast your oven. I do recommend adding some layers of seasoning along the way. We give a little booklet with that. If you have any questions on how to do that, just send me an email, andres@bakingsteel.com, and I will help you through the steps. Pretty easy. We've got a video on our site as well on how to do it. I know, Kathy, I'm hungry too. It's so great. Same. And like, yeah, I don't know about anybody else do that, like that fasting thing, right? I don't eat until like 8 p.m. last night to 12 o'clock today. And I haven't had, I did have some blackberries, but when you have this pizza like this, and you haven't eaten, it's like torture, right? Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, it's gonna be so good. I'm gonna bring it home to my kids. I use the top broiler for about 2 minutes before moving to the bottom until the cheese is melted. Yeah, Jack, that's a great strategy. 2 minutes on top, 2 minutes in the bottom. Would you change anything else in your recipe prep to make it more New York style pizza other than thin and crispy crust? John, great question. And guess what? We have a New York style dough. I'm working on it now. It's done. I just have to like kind of tweak it and get it in written form to you guys. It's done. It's ready. So yeah, there's a little bit difference in the hydration. We add a little bit of oil, and we've added some extra steps to the dough making process just to make it more New York style. And really what that means, it's not going to blow up as much as like our traditional, which I love, by the way, traditional, like, I don't even know what you call our style, just like artisan pizza. I love the air pockets. We're going to lose some of those and just have a traditional New York style dough. It's great. We'll get that out hopefully in the next week or two. These classes are, I love it. Let's see, I also found out that if you don't have a shredder or don't want to shred, you can cube the mozzarella, place them evenly, make sure that you about a 1/4 inch cubes. Oh, that's a good idea. So nice lattice. Oh, that's great. So Jack's saying, yeah, if you don't have a shredder, he just cuts it into really small cubes. I've done that too. You know, it's a great idea. You can just, you want to just cut them into little strips. I tear mozzarella by hand, but cutting the fresh mozzarella into cubes is a really nice trick. Great. Very classic. Yes. Any other questions, you guys? All right, look at, I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to pick a random name. Someone's getting a 12-inch pizza peel. It's awesome. So if I don't hit your name, please forgive me. All right. So Stephen, are you still here? And you are the person that asked about the tomato paste. Stephen, I'm not going to get your last name right. Schwartig Fieger. So Stephen, are you here? Let me know. Yes, I love it. So Stephen, I'm going to give you my email address right here. Can you send me an email after this class and I'll get your info. We'll get that out to you. Amazing. Congratulations. You're going to love it, guys. The 12-inch peel, by the way, rocks. That's my new favorite. They're all awesome. Great. Any other questions, you guys? Been amazing today. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We'll be back in like another week or two, do more. If you guys like this, let me know if you have any special requests for classes. We will we'll get them covered. Do you find the peel with the round works better than the flat? I found the peel with the round works better than the flat. So I'm not quite sure. Like this peel is round, like this shape here. Calzone's a great, oh, good idea. We'll do that for class. That's a great idea. The flat, oh, the flat front. Yeah, I like the round. I think it's tapered at the end here. So I have no problems getting that off. None at all. Love it. And it looks really good in pictures too. Thank you, guys. Is Major done? Isn't peels okay to use? I'm not sure what that says, Major. Can you repeat that one or send me an email and I'll get to it. You guys are great. Thank you for being here. Been an amazing day. Thanks, looking great. Thank you. We'll see you guys very soon. Keep me posted. All right, bye.